The ABC stands widely condemned for its vicious witch hunt against Cardinal George Pell, a witch hunt that had him jailed for a crime he could not possibly have committed. But on the ABC, not a single journalist or presenter defended Pell. Instead, there was a pack attack. The ABC promoted and treated as true a string of vile accusations against Pell of child abuse, every single one of which turned out to be false or so improbable that they've resulted in not a single conviction. Pell himself, after the High Court freed him 2 weeks ago, spoke out against this persecution by the ABC, our taxpayer-funded broadcaster.
In a national broadcaster, to have an overwhelming presentation of one view and only one view, I think that's a betrayal of the national interest.
Now, the ABC in response has scrambled to defend itself, and last night its media watchdog program, Media Watch, hosted by Paul Barry, came up with a string of excuses for its conduct that was so weak and so dishonest that, to me, it screams guilty as charged. Witch hunt, all right. I've dissected Paul Barry's defence, so-called, at length on my blog today. Please read it. Now, I won't go through all of Barry's fake excuses here and the sins that he overlooked. I want to focus instead on just two examples of how dishonestly Media Watch defended the ABC's witch hunt. The shamelessness of it takes my breath away. Now, first, I should acknowledge that Media Watch, yes, did find one tiny fault in the ABC's coverage by Louise Milligan, the ABC's main Pell persecutor, for not telling viewers of Pell's response to the vicious claims made against him.
There was, however, no such caution from Louise Milligan and Four Corners, which did not canvass any of Pell's defence from the trial. In my view, it should have done, and which lined up witnesses condemning Pell.
That out of the way, let's get to the dishonesty. First, Paul Barry on Media Watch suggests that he wasn't biased because once, last year, he'd said some newspapers had run opinion pieces wondering if Pell really was guilty.
We also highlighted articles in The Guardian and The Age questioning the safety of the verdict.
Now, the reason I'm not rushing to congratulate Paul for saying that is that I remember that Media Watch program last year for a very good reason. I remember how Paul Barry actually sneered at people who did argue that Pell had been wrongly convicted.
You might have expected a unanimous guilty verdict for such sickening crimes would draw universal condemnation. But Pell still had plenty of friends in the media, like News Corp columnists Miranda Devine and Andrew Bolt, to paint the Cardinal as the victim.
I have serious misgivings about this verdict. I just can't accept it, based on what I consider is the overwhelming evidence of this trial. Pell, it seems to me, could well be an innocent man who's been made to pay for the sins of his church, and made to pay after an astonishing media campaign of vilification.
Neither Bolt nor Devine sat through the court case.
As you can see, that was not Paul Barry defending Pell in any shape or form. That was him actually sneering at Pell's defenders, however much he, and differently he now sells it, now that the High Court has cleared Pell. But the second example of dishonesty is worse. It is Paul Barry quoting and endorsing the ABC's official defence against the charge of witch hunting against Pell.
The ABC told us more than 80 different voices were used by ABC programmes, 36 of which it says were impartial, while 13 were from the Catholic Church. And it added,
several prominent people who could be described as either supporters of Cardinal Pell or representatives of the Catholic Church were interviewed or appeared on panel discussions. Father Frank Brennan, Francis Sullivan, twice, Archbishop Peter Comensoli, twice, Greg Sheridan, Paul Collins and Terry Laidler. Comments from Professor Greg Craven and Tony Abbott were also included in the package leading PM that day, along with Cardinal Pell's statement.
Now, he might have missed something there in the rush. The ABC says it used 80 voices speaking about Pell, and 36 of them, at least by its count, were unbiased, which means to me that 44 were biased, right? Why didn't the ABC tell us how many were biased against Pell and how many for? It's hiding something. But of those 44 biased people, Barry there actually named just 8 who he claimed were either supporters of Pell or the church. Wrong. In fact, 3 of those 8 allegedly pro-Pell, pro-church people did not defend Pell at all. Terry Laidler didn't. He's no Pell fan. Paul Collins certainly didn't. He's a Pell critic, big time. And the third name, Francis Sullivan. Well, how about you listen to Sullivan on the ABC talking about Pell?
Andrew Bolt, Piers Ackerman and others raised the notion that Pell had been made a scapegoat for the ills of the Catholic Church that he presided over. Now, do you think that's true? Francis Sullivan, what do you think about the question, first of all? Stick to that. And Christina Keneally raised the point it's disrespectful both of the jury and of the victim witness.
Let's face it, George Pell is a very divisive character. And people have a view about him a long time before this trial. And I think that's in the swirl of things. But I agree with everybody at this point. We don't want to put the victim now on trial by suggesting that somehow maybe what they said was wrong. So, as far as I'm concerned, everyone should just shut up.
Yeah.
That was what the ABC calls, in its defence, having someone on the ABC defending George Pell. That's what it claims as evidence that it wasn't on a witch hunt. May it die of shame.